This Dutch aquarium behind me is good, but in today's video, we're gonna make it great. Welcome back to the Boost Plant channel. My name is Logan with Team Boost Plant, and today I'm gonna show you guys how to rearrange the plants in an existing aquarium. Now, one of the coolest things about aquascaping and planted tanks in general is your scape isn't static. It evolves over time, sometimes naturally, some plants take over, other plants maybe fall into the back, but sometimes you can take things into your own hands and rearrange things and sort of reinvent the scape. So today we're gonna add some new plants, move some around, take some away, and make this aquascape a lot better. So if you like these types of tutorials, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you don't miss an upload. So we've got a bunch of beautiful plants in this tank, but there are a couple sections that aren't quite living up to their true potential because a Dutch style aquarium is all about beautiful, vibrant groupings of plants. So you'll see right next to the beautifully vibrant Rotala green is Amania, and it just hasn't grown to the height we initially thought it would. So we're gonna show you how to remove that plant and replace it. And for this, I've got some beautiful Rotala Blood Red. Rotala Blood Red is one of the most deep, vibrant reds in the hobby, and it's gonna look absolutely beautiful next to that Rotala green. That's enough strategy, that's enough talk. Let's actually dive into getting to work. Removing a well-established aquarium plant, it might seem a little bit intimidating, but really you just want to move slowly and deliberately. So what you want to do is use your aquascaping pincettes. These are the UNS stainless steel pincettes, and you want to sort of grab nice and low on the plant, and you want to pull up firmly yet gently. If you move really fast, you'll possibly rip the stem, but if you kind of move slowly with a little bit of force, you'll pull it up by the roots. And the plant might be really deeply rooted, so you just kind of want to move slow so that you don't disturb too much soil. And there you can see this plant has really, really beautiful roots. It's a good sign, they're nice and white. You're just going to remove that. And what you want to do is place that on a nice little tray. You can use these plants in another scape. You can give them to a fellow hobbyist, sell them locally, or move them somewhere else in your tank. And you can see this is another species of Amania that's looking great. So don't want to remove that. And there's another one. It's kind of like weeding. If you ever grew up, weeding a garden, you learn very quickly, well, you want to work fast, but if you pull the weeds out with extreme force, you're just going to rip off the top half and the weed's going to continue to propagate. So you pull very firmly and kind of slowly from the lower portion of the stem, and it comes out nice and easy. So there you go. That's how you remove a stem plant. I'm gonna go ahead and finish this, and then when this process is complete, it'll be time to add the new Rotala. All right, and with that step complete, it's time to add the Rotala. So you can see we've got quite a bit of spare plants here. Again, you could create something new with this, give it away, sell it locally, but we took out a fair bit of plant matter, and you can see, we really work to minimize disrupting any sort of waste organics. Obviously, when you're messing with the soil, tank's gonna get a little bit cloudy, but not too bad. That's the product of working very slow yet deliberately. So let's take a look at our new plants over here. We'll move our old plants. As you can see, we've got some beautiful Rotala Blood Red, and these come with the lead weights wrapped beautifully. So all you have to do is remove that lead weight. You don't want to plant it with the lead weight. I know as a beginner that could be very tempting, but essentially what's going to happen is eventually the plant will not have enough circulation around the base. So it's a good idea to fully remove that. And you can see here's the base of the stem, and you can plant this whole clump, or you could separate each stem. We'll probably just split them into little sections and then spread those out. So there we go. Got some nice clippings right here. These are gonna go right in the tank. All right, so we're gonna start from the back, work our way to the front. And like every stem plant, you could plant super deep. And before you know it, it'll grow nice and tall. And what I like to do is I get it in there nice and deep, and then I kind of tuck it in by just adjusting the soil, almost as if you were, on the beach and you were burying something in sand. Same kind of concept. Same process that's gonna go right next to it. So Rotalas are a plant that are almost synonymous with the Dutch style aquascape. They're a plant that is really, really gonna thrive under high lighting, CO2, high nutrients, and they'll give you back exactly what you put into them. So they can be very high maintenance if you're running a high energy tank. But if you want to keep them under control, you can lower your lighting. Your lighting is essentially going to be the accelerator of your tank. So while you can get by with low tech conditions, even with Rotalas, you know, all plants are going to benefit from high CO2, quality lighting, quality fertilizers. And we're running all three of these on this aquarium. However, with this Chihiros light, it's fully customizable in the app. In order to keep maintenance reasonable and minimize any sort of risk of algae, the lighting is actually only set to 50% power. So that keeps growth fairly reasonable. This tank could use a trim about every 3 weeks or so. But if you're somebody who doesn't mind getting in their tank a lot, isn't worried about dealing with algae, is, you know, experienced and well equipped to deal with algae, you could really up your lighting, which again, think of that as the accelerator, and, you know, run your tank at high gear, and you're gonna get beautiful, vibrant colors and fast growth. Just know that with high lighting comes great responsibility, so you wanna make sure you're also running CO2, because if your plants have a ton of light and they don't have the carbon to create the new tissue, then algae is gonna rear its ugly head and it's gonna take advantage of those excess nutrients that aren't being taken up by the plant itself. And the other thing you wanna consider too is nutrients. So you can give your plants all the light in the world, all the carbon in the world, but if they're limited by the nutrients, then they're not going to be able to grow and plant health is going to suffer. So one thing you want to frequently do when you're doing maintenance and evaluating the health of your tank is look at the individual leaves of your plant. This is a good indication of what's going on. So if all of your plants have tiny little holes, there's a strong chance that either number one, you have some sort of a pest that is eating the tissue, or number two, there's some sort of a nutrient that that particular plant is lacking. And things get pretty complex when it comes to trying to identify exactly what nutrient you're missing. We have a guide over on the Boost blog that gives you some general advice, but it can be a little bit of a rabbit hole that can sort of lead you astray in many cases. So it's better to just take a holistic approach and give your plants everything they need. And what we recommend is dosing a comprehensive liquid fertilizer. For this, we recommend the UNS plant food. It's got everything that your plants need to thrive and grow. And if you can sort of minimize any sort of confusion and granularity around nutrient dosing, that'll free up your mind and your energy to enjoy your planted tank and focus on some of the other aspects like trimming and maintenance and dialing in your lighting and your CO2. I'm gonna finish planting the remainder of this Rotala blood red, and then we're gonna address some of the mid-ground plants. As you can see, we have a beautiful assortment of Bucephalandra, and it's doing quite well. A lot of it is starting to flower, which is a sign that it's well adapted to the tank. However, its height is a little bit of an issue. This pearlweed in the front tends to grow a little bit high, and it can very easily obscure the Bucephalandra. Unless we trim the pearlweed every week, very quickly it sort of outcompetes its height. So it's gonna be much better towards the front. So what we're gonna do is remove the Bucephalandra, and we're gonna place it where the Lobelia cardinalis is. So the first thing we're gonna do is clear some space by removing the Lobelia cardinalis. So let's go ahead and start doing that. All right, so this is a similar process as before. We're just gonna grab the Lobelia from fairly down low and gently but firmly pull up. And you can see the plant has very delicate root structure. It hasn't deeply rooted like the Ammonia. So that could be one of the reasons for its fairly stunted growth. Sometimes some plants just take a little bit longer to establish. Again, it's really gonna depend on your specific aquarium. This is known to be a fairly fast growing plant. It might just be outcompeted for nutrients because it's right next to the pearlweed, which, you know, just like the name implies, grows like a weed. So between that and the Esropens right next to it, it might just have a hard time getting what it needs to truly, truly thrive and take over. So we're gonna pop something different in there. And you can see this one has a fairly deep root structure. So each little plantlet is gonna be different. So we're just removing those gently, try not to disturb, waste organics. And the Bucephalandra, that's a rheophytic plant, so they're currently attached to rocks, which are hidden in the soil. And we're just gonna place those where the lobelia was. And similar process as the way they were initially set up. Just gonna try and hide that little bit of stone as best we can. And pop it into place. And we're gonna tuck that little stone in so it's nice and comfortable. And these should totally continue to thrive. So we likely won't be able to fit all the Buce in here, so any sort of extra rheophytes you have from the layout, be it from an aquascape that you've taken down, or if you're doing something similar here where you're moving plants around, rheophytes are really easy to store. All you need is a Tupperware container, ideally with a transparent clear lid, and you can just put them beside one of your aquariums or under a desk lamp or by a terrarium light. If you want, you could even put a little bit of soil on the base of the Tupperware, but they'll actually be okay with just the occasional spraying of some tank water. And you can store your rheophytes like that pretty much indefinitely. All right, so I'm gonna finish up over here and finish moving the Bucephalandra, and when we return, it'll be time to address the newly barren midground with some new plants. All right, so our Bucephalandra is nice and planted up front. And again, you never want to bury the rhizome of Bucephalandra. These are on little stones that we've buried. The rhizome is above the soil, so it's getting plenty of oxygen and circulation. So now our midground is pretty free to add some new plants. And we're gonna be working with a beautiful Cryptocoryne species. This is Cryptocoryne Petchii. It's a beautiful, vibrant green, and crypts are pretty heavy, deep rooters. So this plant also grabs a little bit of medium height. It's gonna stand out really nicely behind the pearlweed and create a nice contrasty midground that we're kind of missing with the Buce. Now, in order to prep for these guys planting, you'll see some of the pearlweed is beginning to spread out and do its thing. So we're gonna trim that back a little bit, and nothing too fancy, just getting rid of anything that is sort of creeping its way toward the midground. And we'll scoop that out later, just to make some more room for that Cryptocoryne Petchii. So I'm just kind of trimming anything that's creeping back. And this is something you generally have to do with a lot of your plants. Anything that grows fast, they're gonna eventually want to take over the tank. So part of that trimming process is really just analyzing, okay, are these runners going, where I don't want them? And you're just gonna selectively prune them away. And that's that human touch that really makes a Dutch tank a Dutch tank. In a lot of aquascapes, you might just let nature take over and let the plants kind of fight it out for, dominance. But a Dutch tank, you want very clear, distinct groupings. So part of that is pruning your plants that are a little bit overzealous and territorial. Pearlweed being one of them. All right, that's looking pretty good. Now, it's time to get our Cryptocoryne Petchii, and these come in the pots with the rock wool and the nutrients, so of course you want to remove the rock wool. And what I do is I kind of cut the very bottom of the roots off. That'll stimulate some new growth, get rid of some of that excess rock wool. And then from there, you can just kind of plant this in. So you could divide this in two if you wanted, which I think I'll do right here. I'll demonstrate. All you have to do is take your UNS scissors and cut it in half. And then what we can do is we could plant both of these individually. Now we've got two plantlets. Grab your pincettes, parallel to the plant itself, and then plant it nice and deep. And crypts are notorious for crypt melt, so they don't move to new tanks very nicely. They're usually a little bit of an adapt period, and they might shed some of those old leaves. Some pro aquascapers, they even anticipate this and completely cut the leaves off before they plant. But that's up to you. If you do get some melt from your Cryptocorynes, don't worry, it's normal. They're just very dramatic. They're adapting to your tank's specific conditions, and new leaves will come in that are adapted, and after a slow start, the plant will eventually thrive, and it's one of the easier plants to keep. Cryptocoryne is a plant that can do well under a variety of conditions. As we mention all the time, all plants are gonna benefit from high-tech conditions like quality lighting, quality CO2, quality nutrients, but crypts do really well under low light. And they don't really need a ton of nutrients. You just wanna make sure that they're in a great substrate because they do develop very deep roots that are gonna appreciate a nutrient-rich substrate. We're using the UNS Contra soil that was set up with some root tabs, but it's about time to add some new ones. So once these crypts are in here, I'm gonna show you exactly how to do that. So when we return, I'll have all these crypts planted and it'll be time to add those root tabs into our final evaluation of the tank. All right, so our plants have been moved, the new ones are in, and this plant was set up a few months ago, so it's about time to add some new root tabs. Today, we've got the Aquario Neoplant tabs. These are long-term root tabs that are slow release, so they're gonna support your plants over time at the root. And again, you wanna use these in conjunction with water column dosing. So we're dosing the UNS plant food a couple times a week, usually during water changes, and these are gonna support the roots. Super easy to plant. Pop the cap open and you're gonna grab one of the little root tabs. And then I'll demonstrate right near the crypts, which are gonna really appreciate the nutrients. All you do is put it nice and deep and then make sure it's nice and buried. If you plant it shallow, it's gonna be releasing nutrients directly into the water column, which can spur up some algae. So really, I like to add these every 6 inches or so, but it's gonna depend on your specific aquascape. Feel free to experiment, do what's best for you. You certainly don't want a bunch in a small several inch area, so spread them out at least every 6 inches or so. Tank like this, I'd probably add, anywhere between 10 to 15, and just kind of spread them out evenly. Your plants will truly appreciate it. So with our root tabs in, the final step is just to do a big water change. Anytime you do anything even remotely disruptive to the soil in your aquarium, it's a good idea to dilute those waste organics by doing a heavy water change. So we're gonna do that off camera. If you found today's tutorial even the least bit helpful, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell so you don't miss future uploads. But we also wanna hear from you. What do you think of the changes we made in this aquarium? Is there a plant that you think really belongs in this tank that we haven't added? Let us know. We love hearing from you. Thanks so much for watching. Now get out there and create something beautiful.